Today we're going to talk about dissent in the Trump era. A few new and important developments have come up regarding the Trump presidency and the popular response to it. But before we get into the anti-Trump movements themselves, the first thing to come out of the White House now that the former Apprentice host is in the hot seat is an announcement that the U.S. will be pulling out of the awful Trans-Pacific Partnership. And on top of that, he intends to renegotiate NAFTA. 8 a.m., day one. The worst free trade deal yet, and that's really saying something given how porky that GATT, the IMF, the World Bank, NAFTA, the European Union, and others have been. Now sinks like a stone. A transnational monstrosity of a trade deal, universally reviled by organized labor, but supported by progressives like Barack Obama and Justin Trudeau, torpedoed by the Antichrist of the North American left. Go figure. Anyway, good for you, Donald. Glad to see a Republican do something that actually benefits the common man for a change. Mark your calendars, folks. This is going to be a day to remember. He also implemented a federal hiring freeze and froze federal funding for NGOs that provide abortion services. Which brings us to our main topic, and that's the shape that dissent against the Trump administration is beginning to take. Two initiatives bear paying attention to: the guiding principles behind the Women's March on Washington, and what looks to be a Young Turks-inspired and supported initiative called the Justice Democrats. Bold stuff, this. As for the Women's March stuff, as I've pointed out previously, this march came across as a leftist Tea Party. Watching it in action, I can't say I'm surprised, therefore, that their statement of principles holds hefty doses of identity politics in their platforms. Now, don't get me wrong, there's good ideas in here, and a few things I genuinely and personally feel are vital to the restoration of the American and, by extent, the Western left. But no small amount of the same old we've been getting out of the Women's Studies Department for quite some time now. Examples being: we believe gender justice is racial justice and economic justice. We must create a society in which all women, including black women, native women, poor women, immigrant women, Muslim women, lesbian, queer, and trans women, are free to care for and nurture their families, however they are formed, in safe and healthy environments free from structural impediments. And women deserve to live full and healthy lives, free of violence against our bodies. 1 in 3 women have been victims of some form of physical violence by an intimate partner within their lifetime, and 1 in 5 women have been raped. Further, each year, thousands of women and girls, particularly black, indigenous, and transgender women and girls, are kidnapped, trafficked, or murdered. We honor the lives of those women who were taken before their time, and we affirm that we work for a day when all forms of violence against women are eliminated. Now look, I don't disagree with any of this per se. It's good stuff. I wonder about the abuse and rape statistics, mind you. Do they factor in race, religion perhaps, immigration status? To say nothing of how precisely rape and domestic violence are defined in feminist theory. But okay, it's bad stuff and shouldn't be happening at all. Perpetrators should be held accountable regardless of their race, nation of origin, gender, religion, or citizenship status. Provided, of course, the accused are also afforded due process. The deeper point, however: why do we have to explicitly limit what's being offered here to just women? Wouldn't we all be better off if these measures were adopted for everybody? Wouldn't we have twice the strength with which to implement these measures if they were by and for both sexes? And yes, I did say both sexes. If that triggers you, too bad. But I can just hear the responses of the Jezebel crowd now were any of these questions to be put to them. So no sense in that. They can fight with half the strength available to them. Good luck with that. Some of the values and principles are simply unforgivable in their all too typical feminist cringe and self-absorption. Consider. We believe in accountability and justice for police brutality and ending racial profiling and targeting communities of color. Women of color are targeted and killed in police custody at greater rates than white women, and are more likely to be sexually assaulted by the police. We also call for an immediate end to arming police with military-grade weapons and military tactics that are wreaking havoc on communities of color. No woman or mother should ever have to fear that her loved ones will be harmed at the hands of those sworn to protect. We believe it is our moral imperative to dismantle the gender and racial equalities within the criminal justice system. Yeah, I agree. The rate of imprisonment has grown faster for women than men, increasing by 700% since 1980. And the majority of women in prison have a child under the age of 18. Incarcerated women also face a high rate of violence and sexual assault. We are committed to ensuring access to gender-responsive programming and dedicated health care, including substance abuse treatment, mental and maternal health services for women in prison. We believe in the promise of restorative justice and alternatives to incarceration. We are also committed to disrupting the school-to-prison pipeline that prioritizes incarceration over education by systemically funneling our children, particularly children of color, queer and trans youth, foster care children, and girls, into the justice system. Okay. Well, for starters, I'm all for ending the militarization of law enforcement. Good idea. Believe me when I tell you this, women's groups wanting to end gender inequality in the justice system had better think long and hard. Be careful what you wish for, ladies. I'm all for it, of course. But do these women's marchers understand, really grasp what it would entail if gender disparities were really removed from criminal justice procedure and criminal sentencing? Like, do they really understand this? Because sometimes it warrants, no pun intended, taking a look. Sentencing disparities do favor whites over people of color for similar criminal convictions, and this is a legitimate grievance for groups like Black Lives Matter. Not that it justifies their blanket anti-white, anti-police sympathies, but I can see why they're not happy about it. But if feminists of all people wanted to crusade for gender equity in criminal proceedings and sentencing, I would really caution them. Hell, who the hell am I kidding? I'm completely in favor of it. Bring it on. And then, a little bit later, the Women's March on Washington surprised a brocialist like me and came out with some genuinely decent and good ideas. Here's one. We believe in an economy powered by transparency, accountability, security, and equity. We believe that creating workforce opportunities that reduce discrimination against women and mothers allow economies to thrive. Nations and industries that support and invest in caregiving and basic workplace protections, including benefits like paid family leave, access to affordable health care, child care, sick days, fair pay, vacation time, and healthy work environments, have shown growth and increased capacity. Reduce discrimination against men and fathers, where it is shown to occur, education, and count me in. Good stuff. I like it. But the creme de la creme of the Women's March guiding principles, and even better than any one thing in the long list of good ideas I'm about to get into here in a few minutes, is this absolute gem. And I'm talking Hope Diamond of a gem. It says, We believe that all workers, including domestic and farm workers, must have the right to organize and fight for a living minimum wage, and that unions and other labor associations are critical to a healthy and thriving economy for all. Undocumented and migrant workers must be included in our labor protections, and we stand in solidarity with sex workers' rights movements. Well, I haven't swooned like this in a long, long time. Where has this been all my life? The right to unionize and strike has existed on paper only in the United States since George H.W. Bush made it legal to permanently scab out workers going on strike for higher pay, which has contributed significantly to the demise of organized labor and hence the demise of the political and economic clout of the working and middle class in America. It must be restored forthwith, and for this reason and this reason alone, I think this movement, despite the glaring overabundance of SJW fluff and typical feminist claptrap, does merit some support. The Women's March, good, bad, and indifferent, was merely a call to arm the muskets. The Justice Democrats, despite their corny name, have a substantial platform for reform that U.S. politics has not seen since the original Progressive Era and the New Deal. Hell, Clement Attlee would be hard-pressed to top this. Okay, maybe not Attlee, but just about anyone else couldn't touch this. Believe me, folks, this is that good. And here it is, in all its glory. Pass a constitutional amendment to put an end to Washington corruption and bring about electoral reform. Super PACs should be eliminated, private donations to politicians and campaigns should be banned, and a clean public financing system should be implemented to end the takeover of our government by corporations and billionaires. Re-regulate Wall Street and hold white-collar criminals accountable. Despite engaging in systemic fraud and causing a subprime mortgage meltdown in the Great Recession, you can count the people from Wall Street who are in prison for their crimes on one hand. It's time to prosecute the criminals, bring back Glass-Steagall, and re-regulate Wall Street to prevent another crash. Prison is not just for the poor and middle class anymore. We will have cops on Wall Street, not just Main Street. End billionaire and corporate tax dodging. Fix the system to benefit the middle class and poor people. Corporations dodge $450 billion a year in taxes by using offshore havens. We should end this injustice, as well as chain the capital gains tax to the income tax, increase the estate tax, and implement the Buffett rule, so that no millionaire CEO pays less in taxes than his or her secretary. Make the minimum wage a living wage and tie it to inflation. This is about justice and basic human decency. If you work hard and you work full-time, you should not have to live in poverty. Ensure universal health care is a right. The United States should catch up to every other modern nation and implement a single-payer Medicare for all system. Ensure universal education as a right. Educating the citizenry of a nation pays dividends in the long run, with the economy getting back much more than it initially put in. Crushing student debt for higher education would no longer burden young men and women trying to improve their lives through hard work. End unnecessary wars and nation building. End the failed war on drugs. The goal is legalization, taxation, and regulation. Prohibition only makes drug cartels more powerful, increases crime, and makes drugs more dangerous due to lack of enforced safety standards. Create the renewable energy revolution. Block the Trans-Pacific Partnership and all outsourcing deals that will further damage the middle class. Thanks, Donald. End constitutional overreaches. Ban the NSA from bulk data collection and warrantless spying. Shut down Guantanamo Bay and all extrajudicial prisons. prosecute torturers and those who violated the Geneva Conventions, Nuremberg Tribunal, international law and U.S. law, return habeas corpus and due process. Ban the arming of human rights violators, enact common sense gun regulation, and abolish the death penalty. Okay, personally, I think some dirtbags out there really should be executed. But other than that, the hell are you waiting for? Get out there and support this.